Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Monday the 6th of August. And joining me on this edition, thankfully there's more than one person, Steve Withers.
You wait your whole life for a single moment and then suddenly it's tomorrow.
Ed Selley.
You ate my bird.
And Mark Botwright.
The plane. I'm so sorry.
That's only going to work, that joke, people who were around in the 70s.
Yeah.
and watched Fantasy Island. Which is a pretty small subset of our listeners.
Obviously, I know what the reference is. I have no memory of Fantasy Island whatsoever. I know the
great Ricardo Montalban and Hervé Villechaize. I used to watch it every week.
Does he not say it as well in Man with the Golden Gun as well?
No, he doesn't say it in Man with the Golden Gun.
You sure?
Basically, the concept was that people would fly to this island and he would make their fantasies come true. Hence the title, Fantasy Island.
Right, so it's like a Playboy resort then.
Yeah, TV was shit. TV was shit in the 70s, I've got to say.
Before the watershed, was it?
Well, it wasn't that kind of, I don't think it was. It was a very tame, innocent kind of fantasy.
Ah,
not like, with a
Oh. that came to mind far too quickly, Steve.
Yeah, and I'm going to bleep it out so people will be wondering what the hell you referenced there. Just to, right.
What can I reference that was worse than what I just did reference?
Are you bleeping out the or the
Yeah, leaving the
That's now 1, 2, 3, 4 bleeps. There we go.
And you started swearing it.
Right, so Ed, what have you been up to? It's 2 weeks since we've spoken to you. You must have done something.
I have sort of sat. Well, I mean, I've done some world-class sitting. I've been reviewing loads of stuff for lots and lots of different people. That's all been jolly exciting. I was saying before the podcast kicked off, I took the momentous decision to have my car cleaned. It's blue again, which is exciting. I am going down to Hampshire again after this podcast finished because tomorrow the plan is we're going to take my son to the Tank Museum. He suddenly developed a genuine excitement for tanks, so bollocks to it. Let's
Boddington, here you come.
If you want tanks, and as I understand it, they've got all of the Tiger derivatives on display.
Yeah. No, I'm going down probably week after next. I'm looking forward to it.
Which is, I'm a simple soul. I like a good tank, and that's not rhyming slang or a euphemism. I like armoured fighting vehicles. I just like big mechanical things, and I'm sure that he will find it entertaining as well.
So really, you're going and you're taking the boy with you, and he's going to like it.
No.
It's like buying a Scale Electric set, isn't it? It's really for you.
We've ummed and ahed about this, but all of a sudden he's become quite excited about tanks and tracked vehicles and stuff like that. The only thing that's really bizarre, and actually I'm going to put this out to podcast listeners. My son is 4. He'll be 5 in October. He is genuinely unsettled by the sound of hand dryers and hair dryers, but has no problem at all being 8 feet from a monster truck.
Different frequencies, isn't it? Children's ears.
Well, yeah, but don't get me wrong. I mean, and I need to stress for any health and safety operatives listening, he was wearing bloody ear defenders. But no, biblical bits of machinery making the sort of noise you associate with the world ending, not a problem. Hand dryers, terrified of.
Yeah, but Mark's right. That's lots of bass energy, whereas their hearing can hear up to very high frequencies, which ours can't anymore, and probably they find it uncomfortable.
It's not the same. It's not like it's just one type of hand. I mean, if it was like those Dyson Air blades, which are bloody loud, okay, that would be a bit odd, but that's fair enough. But it is all of them, regardless of pattern, frequency, design. He has just developed a phobia of hand dryers, which is
hair dryers, should you say?
And well, I mean, obviously that's not a big part of my life, as you might imagine. I mean, I've got more hair than you.
My cat doesn't like hair dryers, so maybe.
Yeah, but to be fair, that's not. I'm hoping that at 4, my son has got slightly greater process reasoning than your cat. But
it sounds like a new feature in the offing.
Well, we'll see how we go. But yeah, that's all good. So yeah, hopefully Tank Museum on Saturday. So looking forward to that.
So you make a weekend of it. Do Tank Museum, then Monkey World. You like that?
Actually, it's not very far from the Fleet Air Arm Museum either, so you could go there as well.
We'll just do the Tank Museum. On the Sunday, I think I'll probably, because I can't barbecue in my granny annex, I think I might, if the weather holds, I will probably do another barbecue at my parents' because I enjoy barbecuing and I haven't had the opportunity to do it very much this summer. I didn't have an opportunity to do it that much last summer because actually the other day was the year anniversary of me falling off the front step of my house and breaking my leg in 4 places.
It's not been a good year for you, is it, really, all things considered?
Well, there is that. But do you know what was really bizarre is that on that day, currently my wife, soon to be my ex-wife, also then stumbled, and we thought for at one point she had then also managed to break her ankle. Mercifully, it was just a sprain. But I need to stress that July the 28th... Did you push her? I did not. July the 28th, 2019, I am going to spend the entire day in bed, and not a hospital bed either. I'm not moving. It's clearly not a good day. I'm just going to make plans accordingly.
You just think the day's cursed?
Well, the omens don't look good, do they?
Sedentary for 24 hours and get up and have deep vein thrombosis.
But that's every day in Ed's life.
I resent that. I mean,
you're a lot less sedentary these days than you used to be. Let's be honest.
I'm a fair amount less sedentary, and it's actually where I am now. It's very nice. I can, just pop out and walk down to one of the many shops or pubs or the sandwich shop or things like that. So it's all good.
Yeah, Ed. The flaw here is you're walking to a sandwich shop, you're walking to the pub. So any calories that are being burnt, you just.
I'm not suggesting that it's a weight loss thing, but I am at least moving around and I'm active. So I'm not going to be preached at to you. I mean, okay, this is the thing. You're like born again Christians. It's like, I've now discovered healthy living. I can't believe I used to live like that. I can't believe you live like that. Just do one.
Okay, Mark, any pottery in your life these days, or is that now a gone?
No, that's a distant memory now, I'm afraid. Yeah, at least until next year.
Okay, so what are you doing with your spare time now?
Spare time now, I'm trying to build a bicycle. That's what I'm doing right now, and I'm doing it, unfortunately, without a garage, so I can't spray it in a nice environment. So I'm having to kind of rattle can it outside and wait until it's not ridiculously hot, and wait until the breeze calms down a bit. And I'm getting to that OCD stage of like a fly lands on it, and then I have to sand it all back again. So
it's like painting the fourth bridge.
Yeah, it is.
In answer to the question someone posed about what does Mark do for a living, not much actually.
I was going to
fills his time with really pointless activities.
That was my next thing, because obviously people are wondering. There was I posted a thing up just telling everybody about what's happening with the editorial, and there's been a few changes, and we've changed a couple of badges and stuff. And somebody put in the replies, Mark, and who does Mr. Botwright work for?
If anyone ever asks me what do you do, I always just say I don't. That's enough.
Are you like Hugh Fernley Whittingstall, because he was down your neck of the woods? You do just a sort of free man on the land sort of business.
Yeah, exactly. A gentleman of leisure.
You're like that character in About a Boy, aren't you? Basically, you just live off the revenue from some hit single in the 60s, and then compartmentalize your life into units of 30 minutes and just fill them up.
Yeah. Well, cheers for that, Steve.
I didn't say you looked like Hugh Grant.
Wow.
Right, Steve, you've been upsetting everybody. What have you been up to?
Just not much really. Bit of work, lots of calibrations. Nothing particularly interesting, I have to say, fortunately.
Yeah, okay. Right, so I did mention that article. There has been some changes on the podcast. We mentioned little bits here and there, but just to quickly go over it, the reference status badge is dead. We've killed it off. It no longer exists now. It's been replaced by best in class. Obviously, the reasons for that is no matter how often we mention it in the review and in the conclusion and so on, is why that badge has been awarded. The reference badge just seems to confuse people, because people, for one reason or another, have it in their head or have the perception that reference means absolutely perfect. And to be honest, there is no product that is absolutely perfect. There never will be. They're consumer products. The reference badge was more about products in its class being referenced to it. So it was the one product that you were always going to refer whatever it was you were reviewing to that product, because that is the reference product for that sector of the market, or for that type of product, basically. But there was a few issues with that. People didn't quite understand it. We thought it was a bit confusing, so we have changed it to best in class. Do you like the change, Ed?
From my perspective, I do, yes, because in the especially with modern hi-fi now assuming all sorts of weird and wonderful forms, it gives much greater scope to recognise brilliance in specific categories, and for us to be able to point to say, if you've got this much money and you want this, we think this is the best we've got, and so on and so forth, rather than saying, well, in absolute performance terms, you want that, but it's very large and very expensive. So no, as far as I'm concerned, it's a good move. I mean, I was, as I said to you on Skype, there was a slight irony that I awarded something I put up onto the management system to go out for reviews in the future. I had awarded that a reference status badge, which we've now had to unaward, and we'll put it, but that will be the first.
Presumably re-award it a best in class.
Yes, it will be a best in class. So that the irony of that wasn't lost on me, but that's just me being churlish. So yeah, otherwise I think it's, from my perspective, where there is much less measured absolutism in the decisions we're making, it actually suits hi-fi arguably even better than the televisions. So I'm as happy as the proverbial pig.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it gives a lot more scope for us to, like you say, to highlight products that are pretty exceptional. Now, there is the Best Buy badge, which does get used now and again, but normally it tends to be highly recommended that tend to be awarded the most. The Best Buy, the best way to explain why that badge would be awarded is basically a Best Buy is at such a price point that it actually outperforms everything in its natural class. It's actually probably a class above that. Would that be fair, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, it's defined as a product that offers excellent performance and exceptional value. So,
yes,
it has to be, it very much, it obviously relates to its performance, but it also very much relates to its price point as well, compared to its peer group. And if it's, if it meets that criteria, then it warrants a Best Buy. You see them every now and then, because there's been some really great products that have been awarded Best Buy badges. But the reference status badge is confusing in the sense that, people seem to think if you give it that means it has to be the perfect product and the best possible product. And when you're talking about TVs, clearly there are currently two very distinct technologies. And I don't think either is perfect, and both have strengths and weaknesses. So it does make a lot more sense to use best in class. And I think it gives us, as Ed's just pointed out, a bit more freedom when it comes to awarding badges for particular products in particular market segments.
Absolutely. So that's the reason we're bringing that in. And of course, there's always the comment section under every review. So if you do ever have questions about the review, how the review is done, badges and all sorts, then you can post your questions in there. And when the guys have time, because I'm the only full-timer here nowadays, so this was the other change that we wanted to make everybody aware of. So Steve was full-time as assistant editor. He's moved on from that role now. He will be on the podcast. He's still publishing reviews to the site, but you've now gone freelance, Steve, because you wanted to spread your wings basically and do some different things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, work with different publications, write for different kinds of audiences, that kind of thing. So yes, I did previously work exclusively for AVForums, and now I no longer do. But I still do stuff for AVForums. I mean, you'll still see my reviews. There's one went up this week, and I'll do the podcast, of course.
Welcome to the world of shameless corporate whoring.
Because Ed's already a freelancer.
I've been a freelancer since 2012. So yes, available for weddings, funerals, bar mitzvahs, and rewriting your website copy. Do feel free to get in touch.
That's a pretty grim wedding speech.
I've never had to write, other than my own one, which obviously we can judge the success of that. I'd be perfectly willing to have a crack at doing those sort of things. Or rather, if you've got, I don't want to research your life because frankly that's tedious. But if you've got your speech and you just want it to have a little bit of snap, I'm going to blow my own trumpet here. I have a way with words. I also know how things can be set up so you can read it comfortably, and you've got your pauses for effect and all the rest of it. Just like Tony Blair, but not evil.
I was just imagining it as the only wedding speech with references to £30,000 turntables or something.
If you want that, I can do it. But if you want to be off audio, not a problem at all. So yeah, just as I say, I'm in the process of broadening my horizons slightly. So why not give that a whirl? Okay,
and his email address is edthewhore@gmail.com.
I bet you someone's taken that.
Probably right. I think we better do a podcast now. So competitions. Who's the victim this week? Let's pick on Mark.
Okie dokie, you can win a copy of A Quiet Place on 4K Blu-ray, and that one closes on the 8th of August. As ever, all competitions open to eligible AVForums members resident in the UK. Okay, so that's competitions. That's us all up to date with where we are. So we're going to talk hardware news next. Okay, so moving on to hardware news. We hinted at it last week when we had our little Smith & Jones podcast, Steve, that we thought Sony were going to launch 2 new flagships. It's probably the worst kept secret in the industry, actually, that they were going to introduce 2 new TVs. And
the worst kept secret since their last worst kept secret.
Yes. However, I was expecting it to be IFA. I wasn't expecting them to have an event over in New York, but then I guess it makes sense to get out to the world's press. It's probably the best place to go and do that. So they have announced the AF9 OLED TV and the ZF9 LCD TV. So the ZF9 replaces the ZD9, and the AF9 is now the flagship TV in the range because it's now better than the A1 and the AF8. And the reasons for that, Steve, are basically what we've said in our reviews for the last couple of years: is give us a CMS, give us some autocal, and full 3D CMS. It's because of the new X1 Ultimate chip. There's all the features that we asked for, and I really like the feature on the AF9 where you can turn the acoustic surface from a stereo speaker to a center speaker for a multi-channel system.
That's a great idea. That is a great idea. I got a look at the X1 Ultimate. They were demoing it at their event back in February, and it did look quite impressive, I have to say, in terms of its processing capabilities. Hopefully they'll have a bit more processing power for the smart platform as well, so it won't keep crashing. Yes,
it is the new Android system. It is a more powerful chip. Hopefully that will improve things. I've got to say though, since the last firmware update on the AF8, it's far more stable. I haven't had any crashes on the AF8.
Yeah, it's stable, but I calibrated an AF8 in the week, and you press the picture button and wait 3 seconds for anything to turn up on the screen, which is just ludicrous.
It is, and somebody says, well, why are you making a big issue of that? Well, when you've got other screens next to it that are doing it instantly, and you've got a £500 LCD in for review that does things instantly as well, it starts to show that there are issues with stuff. So these new TVs are going to be called Master Series, which is interesting. It's also interesting, Steve, that they are going with the creator intent message.
They're going straight to Panasonic's market here, aren't they?
But the thing is, the thing that surprises me is that it's taken Sony so long, because if you're a professional in the industry, you've been using Sony gear for decades. I mean, absolute decades. We made a video with Sony 2 years ago, and we pitched the idea, let's do from camera to the TV as your video, because you make the best cameras, or some of the best cameras in the business. You definitely got the best monitors in the business when it comes to grading suites and all the rest of it. So why not tell that message? And it seemed to confuse when we wanted to tell it.
It's amazing that the default professional monitor is the Sony OLED.
Yeah.
And it's taken this list long to realise that they're in a unique position of offering something similar to a mass market consumer audience. Now, obviously, Panasonic have been doing this for a few years, haven't they? That's been their big selling point. That they've involved with the Hollywood colorist. They've got the EZ1000 is used as a sort of a large screen monitor in professional production houses. So it's a surprise it's taken so long, but clearly they've now twigged to the fact, like, okay, let's use this this experience and this knowledge to bring a TV to the market that people can use, well, I guess in the same professional manner as well.
I mean, obviously, it's not going to be the same as the professional monitor. The professional monitor is £30,000. They're not going to undercut that by putting the technology, piecemeal into a consumer product. But you'll get something very similar, I think, in terms of some of the technology that is in the professional monitors moving over to the consumer TVs, and with the calibration features on there now. Because, I mean, some of the times it depends on the panel that you had, but and you'll know more about this being in the field, Steve, and doing calibration work. But 9 times out of 10, once you've fixed the white balance issues on the panel, normally the colours would come back in terms of luminance, in terms of saturation tracking, and so on. And your delta E's would be around about 3 or under once you'd done the white balance and gotten that right. Your colour errors wouldn't be as large. But just to have the CMS and the flexibility of having the CMS can make difficult panels come into line a far easier than you have at the minute.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I did an AF8 earlier in the week. Calibrated the grayscale perfectly, and the colours did fall into line almost perfectly. But there was a slight hue error in magenta which I couldn't fix, which I would be able to fix with a CMS. So if they could add a CMS, if they're going to add a CMS, that's excellent. I'd also like to see them add separate picture modes for HDR, and also more than one 10-point setting for because at the moment it's just one 10-point setting which is used for the entire all the picture modes. Which also I'd like to see them stop shoving in backdoor processing in other picture modes. Make it a feature you can turn on and off. Because the only picture mode that's free of any backdoor processing is the Cinema Pro mode. Every other mode has some jiggery pokey going back, and particularly when it comes to gamma. Like Cinema Home, for example, there's some heavy manipulation of the gamma curve in that mode. So I'd like to see them, if they want to put those features in, that's fine, but put them in as things you can turn on off in the menu system. So there's a lot of little quirks in the Sony that annoy me. And it's very much that kind of Sony thing, isn't it, where they always have to go their own way sometimes. Some things they do are brilliant, though, like actually calling the brightness control black level, which is what it is, it's a lot more. It makes a lot more sense than calling it the brightness control, which is what it's been traditionally called, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with the brightness of the TV. And the control on something that's called brightness actually does affect the brightness of the picture. So a bit of logic there is quite good. But sometimes they just do strange stuff because they're Sony, I guess, and that's what they do. But it certainly sounds like an interesting TV.
Yeah, TVs. What's going on with this Netflix mode?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of
that sounds like bullshit.
Yeah,
that sounds like bullshit. I mean, Netflix will be using when they're mastering content for SDR, they'll use the SDR standards that everybody else uses and always has. And when it comes to HDR, they'll still be using the same basic standards. They'll be using DCI P3 within Rec 2020 and I think 1,000 nits, isn't it, with Netflix content. So that just sounds like a bit of marketing bullshit to me.
Withers has spoken.
And is the OLED still going to have the angled stand? Do we know?
Yes, it does. So it
in the picture, it definitely does.
Yeah, it does. We haven't actually seen the TVs yet. Yeah, so there are some improvements in there. It's nice that they have been listening to some of the feedback as well, because now all 4 HDMIs are 2.0Bs. So all 4 are now full fat HDMI. The only thing is Dolby Vision. We still don't know if they're still doing their version of Dolby Vision.
I suspect, this is just my speculation, but I suspect with the X1 Ultimate processor, this is going to be proper implementation of Dolby Vision.
Good.
That would be my interpretation of this.
I would tend to agree with you, and it's interesting that Calman, they seem to be clearing up in terms of the market.
Well, they've got all 4 major.
I think they've got all 4 now.
All
so
4.
all got AutoCal. So it'll be interesting to see how that works as well. And it shouldn't be confused that AutoCal works for consumers. It doesn't. It's just it gives professionals an easier way to work with the panels than they are at the minute. Although there seems to be mixed reactions as to how the system is implemented at the minute, but then it's a new technology, Steve. It's still teething problems and so on. And I guess with the feedback that Calman are getting a picture and Portrait Displays, who now own Calman, the feedback they're getting, hopefully that'll develop into something that's useful for everybody.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. I mean, they're very good at taking on board feedback and updating the software to reflect the feedback that they get. They're always looking to improve the product, which is excellent. And I think one day, particularly when you look at the LG TVs, where the AutoCAD is actually built into the hardware rather than just a software implementation, there's no reason why at some point in the future you couldn't. And I think this is something that Toshiba played around with a few years ago, didn't they? Where you get a small color meter, cheap color meter, and you attach it to TV, and the TV calibrates itself basically. That could be something that we'll see in the future. But at the moment it's basically a tool to help professional calibrators. I mean, you need the software, a color meter, pattern generator to use this stuff. So it's not something you can just do yourself unless you buy the equipment and you know how to use it. But it basically speeds up the calibration process.
So that's new displays from Sony. We look forward to seeing them at IFA. We'll finally get some hands-on time with them, have a bit look around in the menu systems and so on, see what changes have been made there, and hopefully get them through for review as quickly as we can as well. It's interesting that a lot of the focus seems to be on the AF9, and the ZF9 hasn't been given an awful lot of focus, especially in the press releases as well. There wasn't as much detail on the ZF, so maybe they're holding something back for IFA. Yeah,
because my first thought was, I wonder how many zones it's using, and I wonder how bright it goes, because that could be interesting. Because the ZD9 was a cracker telly, wasn't it? So.
Yeah. Okay, so we look forward to that. More TV news. TCL, Chinese manufacturer, they've been going a long time. We see them every year at CES, but we've never actually covered them, although we've gone and looked at their product and looked at what they were launching in the States. We've never looked because they've never seemed to have been interested in the UK market, Steve, but they look like they're coming this year.
They are, yeah. They've got a bunch of TVs coming. They've announced it. Did they announce when they're actually coming, or just that they're coming?
I believe the models they've announced are available now on Amazon.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. And the models in question are a 43 and 45 inch 4K smart TV with UHD, HDR, HDR10 and HLG, plus YouTube, Netflix and 4K. That's the DP608, which retails for £499 for the 55 inch. Now, how much was the 55 inch Hisense that you reviewed?
You can pick it up for $579.
Right. So it's actually even cheaper than the Hisense. Now, of course, when these TVs say HDR, as I'm sure you can testify to with the Hisense, that doesn't mean it does HDR particularly well, or they have any very much brightness. But yes, it seems that's coming. And also, there's the DP648, which comes in 43, 50, 55, and 65 inch screen sizes. And also, there'll be a higher end DC748. Which will have an integrated JBL soundbar, and that'll be in a 55 and a 65 inch screen size. So yeah, it looks like they're really targeting the Hisense end of the market in terms of price point at least, and features. So it'll be interesting to see how they actually perform in terms of picture quality.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see that. I'm going to catch up with them if I have time. I'm going to go and catch up with them at IFA in a couple of weeks, just to see what the products are like, and we'll see if we can get them in for review as well, because I have been featuring some of the lower end TVs. And like you say, when you get to this kind of price point, I think anything under really £1,000, you're going to struggle with HDR. There seems to be this perception that LCD TVs are way brighter than OLEDs. That's not the case once you get under £1,000, unfortunately. The HDR performance tends to drop off quite quickly. And even this Cello TV that I'm reviewing this week, no HDR on it. It doesn't do HDR. It's a 1.4 HDMI input, so it does 4K up to 30 frames. No HDR though. So
yeah. Well, maybe that's more honest to say, look, we don't do HDR because it's not bright enough, than saying something is HDR and actually really it isn't.
Yeah. Maybe that is. Right, so that's TVs wrapped up for this week. We've got lots of things in the pipeline. I am secret squirreling next week. I'm looking at 3 products next week, which I can't talk about till IFA, but some excitement there. I'm excited. I'm so excited I'm going to drive down. And I very rarely drive down these days, down south. So I can't talk about that next week or the week after, but IFA week we'll be able to tell you that there will be a video with it as well, and so look out for that. There's some interesting products coming very soon. Right, Ed, over to you. You weren't here for the podcast at the end of the month last week, so we're going to get your vinyl release playlist and album of the month.
Yeah. Okay, album of the month is one for those of us who, how should we put this, are more experienced, that is to say, been doing it for a bit too long. There is a new album
Jimi Hendrix album.
No, this is an album out by a group called Hybrid this month. It is their first album in a very, very long time. They have been concentrating on tinkering with their old stuff and doing a lot of computer game work, interestingly. But they have now finally released a studio album. Bizarrely, it's called Light of the Fearless, which I think is a slightly crap title, but there you are. But I think it's a pretty good album. And I would also say it's one of those things where you think this sort of sounds at times derivative, but it's important to stress that in some regards, some of the sounds being made there, Hybrid were the first people to do it, the sort of mix of orchestral and an electronic effect. And I think it's a damn good listen. It's the album of the month this month, because whilst there will apparently be a vinyl release of it, I would suggest that that's going to be completely pointless. Hybrid has always been about the sort of quality as it is on as a digital release. There is apparently going to be a high-res digital download, and I suspect that could be really rather good indeed. So it's on the major streaming services as well, if you want to have a listen before splashing any hard-earned money. But no, that would be my album of the month. Playlist of the month is short and sweet. It's 9 tracks long. It's on Tidal, and it's the deep cuts of DJ Shadow. Now you think, oh no,
I'm in for that.
Basically, it's just a reminder that done so much stuff, and some of it you'd never associate with being him. It's really impressive. It's also an opportunity to listen to what, to my mind, is my favourite piece of work that Tom York of Radiohead has ever done, which is Rabbit in Your Headlights on the original Encore album. It's absolutely phenomenal. Vinyl release of the month. Do you know what? It's a format that is of limited interest to any of the rest of you here, but I suspect it might be of passing interest to you. There is a US record label called Mondo who specialise in film material. They were the people that did the Fight Club album that I had to destroy to get into. Mercifully, this one you don't have to destroy it, and I do genuinely want it. I have to work out if I can afford it at the end of the month. They have released the Atomic Blonde soundtrack on a really beautiful piece of vinyl and artwork. The Atomic Blonde soundtrack, as far as I'm concerned, won the best of last year. I absolutely adored it. And this is
an original soundtrack or a collection of 80 songs?
It's the 80s songs. It's not the score. So it's just.
So Ed, is there a Blondie track on there?
I believe there is. Yeah,
must be.
Must be.
Is it Atomic?
No, actually, no, it isn't. We've got. There's Cat People (brackets Putting Out the Fire) by David Bowie.
Awesome song.
Major Tom by Peter Schilling, which is bloody marvellous. The German band Health's cover of Blue Monday, a track which would cause us to be bleeped, by Tyler Bates. The proper German version of 99 Red Balloons, George Michael's Father Figure, De Commissar, Cities in Dust by Susie and the Banshee, Politics of Dancing by Reflex, Stigmata by Marilyn Manson and Tyler Bates, which is actually part of the score. Tyler Bates' Demonstration, that's also part of the score. I Ran, (brackets So Far Away) by Flock of Seagulls, great track. A different version of 99 Red Balloons, obviously. Voices Carry by Till Tuesday, London Calling by The Cash, and then another part of the score by Tyler Bates. So I will be in like Flynn for that. It looks great. So those are my bits and bobs.
We'll be coming back to the 80s a bit later on. When we talk about TV shows. But anyway, thanks for that, Ed. So that wraps up hardware news. We'll be back in a sec with movie reviews and news. Okay, so I didn't go to the cinema yesterday.
Dog sitting, weren't you?
I was dog sitting. Proofread all Ed's reviews, so they're all proofed. Thanks to the dog. I had to dog sit, and I still haven't caught up with the original Ant-Man yet. So it was pointless. Couldn't along to see a film that I hadn't seen the first one for. So
you didn't need to have seen the first one to have seen this one. To be fair,
right?
But
well, I might go over the weekend. I've still got to go in and see Mission Impossible in IMAX. I really want to go and see that in IMAX before it disappears off that screen. So I might just make a day of it one day next week and go and do both. But you've been to see it, so what did you think?
I have. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, I appreciate that it's going to seem like a bit of an anti-climax after the events of Infinity War, and there's no getting around that fact, really. But then again, the original Ant-Man came out after Avengers: Age of Ultron, so I guess I kind of think of it as basically an amuse-bouche, or something just to cleanse the palate after Infinity War.
Feels a bit like Marvel's kind of B-list, one of those kind of characters.
Yeah, it's like a support feature. Really, it's like we've got another film coming out because if you've done, obviously they could have gone Infinity War Part 1 and then straight into Part 2, whatever they're going to call it, and not had anything in between. But I think that in some senses this is quite a nice thing to have as a bit of a after all the intensity of that film, Infinity War. You want something a bit lighter, a bit funnier, a bit more of a laugh, a bit more of a romp before we go back into the second part. So I actually quite like that aspect of it. But I can understand why some people would consider it to be a bit of an anticlimax because Infinity War was a massive film and with a very strong ending, shall we say? And this film, you think, I'm going back before Infinity War because it does take place before Infinity War. Is that? I can see how people would feel that way. But personally, I like the characters. I like Paul Rudd. I think it was fun and entertaining. It was very funny, lots of jokes. Very similar to the original Ant-Man. I enjoyed the plot. I liked the protagonist. I also thought that the antagonist, the antagonist, the villain, had an interesting backstory, and again, was more sympathetic, a bit like the villain in Black Panther. There's more of a story behind them, and therefore you felt that they weren't all bad. It wasn't just some cackling lunatic. So I like that aspect of it. There's some cracking action sequences in it, some really good set pieces, imaginative use of changing in scale and size and everything like that. So I actually thought it was a really fun romp, and it all revolves around this thing called the quantum realm, which is introduced in Ant-Man as a major plot point in this film. And I know in Kaz's review he was like giving it 6 out of 10 and saying, oh, it's just a minor film and it could have been wrapped up in 20 minutes. And I think he's missing the point. I'm pretty sure the quantum realm is going to be a massive plot point in the next Avengers movie. That's my take. So it's setting up important plot points for the next film, and that's why it exists, and that's why it's here. Plus, of course, Ant-Man wasn't in Infinity War, and that's explained why in this film. But he's definitely in the next one because I've seen behind the scenes photographs and that sort of stuff. So yeah, they were setting up Ant-Man for this in the same way that Captain Marvel, which comes out I think in February or March next year, that will be set in the 90s, and again it's setting up an important character who was alluded to right at the very end of Infinity War. So these two films are going to set up various plot points that are going to be important when you actually see the second part of Infinity War. And I should say that Ant-Man and the Wasp does reference Infinity War at the end. So it's all part of a plan, and it works for me, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun, entertaining romp, light-hearted, funny, and therefore a nice antidote to what was a pretty heavy movie in terms of Infinity War. So yeah, I give it 8 out of 10.
What's its runtime, Steve?
Under 2 hours, just under 2 hours.
Right.
It's not a long movie. It's not overtly long. It's a nice tight running time. I didn't think outside it's welcome. I wasn't bored at any point. I didn't find myself looking at my watch. I didn't agree with Kaz's review at all. I thought he missed the point entirely. But each to their own opinion, of course.
Fighting talk.
Shots fired.
He's not here.
But yeah, no, I felt like for me, I went in expecting an Ant-Man movie, and my one complaint would probably be that for an Ant-Man movie, Ant-Man's not in it as much as you might expect. There's a lot more of the Wasp. Like I say, I enjoyed it. It's a fun, entertaining 2 hours, plenty of jokes, nice characters. I think Paul Rudd's a very charming leading man as well. So, yeah, go check it out. And
I'll use the cliched phrase, if we all liked the same thing, it'd be a pretty boring world.
It would indeed.
The Meg's coming, Steve.
I know, next week. So films opening this week, as in on Friday. There's 3 films, but only one really matters. I'll mention the other 2 first. So there's Unfriended Dark Web, which is a sequel to Unfriended. I haven't seen it, but it's basically one of those films where they shoot it on, I don't know, cameras and laptops, I think. So it's all very low budget.
Found footage.
Yes, thank you, found footage. Unfriended, I think, actually got quite good reviews, but I've got no real interest in it. And also The Darkest Minds, which I've seen trailers for at the cinema. And if the best thing they can come up with is from the producer of Stranger Things, they're reaching. It just looks like another young adult adaptation. And again, I have no interest in it because those 2 films matter not a jot, because this week we get The Meg with Jason Statham and a gigantic shark, and what more could you possibly want?
I am currently trying to work out whether you or Mark Craven, the editor of Home Cinema Choice, is more excited about these things, because both of you are actually
Craven. Craven definitely.
Craven.
He's got a major man crush on Statham.
Yeah. I'll give Statham to Craven because I want The Rock. So both of us can fight it out next year when the Rock Statham Fast and Furious spin-off comes out.
Oh hell! No, this is good. The only thing is, it's released on the Friday, isn't it? So
so we can't see it before the podcast.
Can't see it before the podcast. So yeah, we'll have to review it the week after that.
It does look like it. I have to be honest. It does at least look like every single person from the catering staff upwards looks like they have enjoyed themselves immensely in the creation of it. And every now and again, we've had this conversation. Not everything needs to be worthy. Not everything needs to shoot for an Oscar. Yeah. Sometimes you just want to have a laugh.
Exactly. This feels almost like the pinnacle of, like that kind of high concept era from, Simpson and Bruckheimer, where everything had to be kind of boiled down to a pithy little pitch or something like that. But this works. Just say to someone Statham versus a mega shark. And you don't need anything more than that.
It's like Steve said last week or the week before. The line in the trailer that hooks everybody in is him saying, "It's Megalodon."
It's a Megalodon, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, awesome.
Do you know what? I keep saying this. I might go and see it. The problem is, every time I finish my work for the day, it's like, oh, shall I go to the cinema? It's like, well, it's quite a long way away. It's quite expensive, and I've got a lot of records to listen to, and then I don't go anywhere. So we'll see. We'll see if the lure of Jason Statham and a biblically sized shark is enough to drag my sorry ass out of the house and off to the cinema. It'll be an interesting psychological test.
Yep. Well, if you do, then we can all review it the following week on the podcast, because unfortunately it comes out on the Friday when we record. Right, so that's films coming out this week. Blu-ray releases, I'm expecting Ready Player One on 4K to drop through the letterbox any minute.
Yeah, I've got mine already because I got it from the States.
Yeah, you got it from the States.
Yeah, sorry.
Looks and sounds awesome.
What a good comeback that was.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. How do you type that? Because that could have been our byline for the week.
What? Yeah, so Monday we got Ready Player One in regular Blu-ray, 3D Blu-ray, and 4K disc. I actually ordered the 3D Blu-ray as well because I want to see it in 3D because I think it might look quite good. Also, Isle of Dogs is out on Blu-ray. I watched this earlier this week actually. Again, I got the disc from the States, and it's Wes Anderson. It's very Wes Anderson, but I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed it. It looks gorgeous. The stop motion animation is fantastic. It's got a cracking soundtrack too, with a lot of Japanese drumming, which is a nice little test for how tight your bass is. And yeah, no, it's absolutely wall to wall Wes Anderson, a complete Wes Anderson movie. And if you like Wes Anderson's style, you'll love this. If you're not a fan, you're not going to like it at all. But it's got a cracking voice cast too, which everyone who's ever worked with Wes Anderson, I think. So for me, that comes recommended. We've got Death Wish on Blu-ray, and that's the remake of the Charles Bronson Death Wish movie with Bruce Willis in the lead role. I think it's directed by what's his face? Who was it? Guy that made damn it, I've forgotten his name.
You've forgotten both the film and his name.
That's quite an achievement.
Yeah, completely gone.
He made that thing.
I don't think it was that
Eric
important.
Roth. Eric Roth, is it? Something Roth. Anyway, it's not important. Doesn't really matter. I'm not even sure Death Wish. Did it even get a cinema release in this country? It didn't do particularly well.
AVForums podcast coming at you with all the facts.
Asterisk, some facts, periodically.
Who
Anyway,
are you again?
If you've seen Death Wish or any of its various sequels, you'll know what to expect. Bloke's wife and daughter in the original film get raped and murdered, and then he goes on a killing spree, vigilante killing spree. So I guess it's going to be something similar. Yeah. Although, you know, I like a bit of Bruce. So Bruce killing people, that sounds quite entertaining. The Terminal, which is a sort of sci-fi thriller with Margot Robbie. They look quite interesting in the trailers, I have to say, so I might check that out. There's also Blockers, which is a comedy about a bunch of parents basically cock-blocking their kids, hence the title. There's also an animated film, Death of Superman, out on Blu-ray, which was a competition prize up until the Monday this podcast goes up. Sex, Lies and Videotape is coming from Criterion, so that's Steven Soderbergh's first movie. We've also got, I guess, re-releases, or at least first-time Blu-ray releases for Batchelor Party, which was the first film I ever saw Tom Hanks in. Actually, I saw that before I saw Splash. And also The Truth About Cats and Dogs, which is actually a really nice romantic comedy, worth checking out if you haven't seen it.
Okay, good stuff. Right, so we're going to go to... have you mentioned everything on UHD Blu-ray? Did you mention...
Ready Player One, obviously, getting a 4K disc release this week as well. And also, and this is interesting, you're getting... Predator, plus also a 3-disc set of all 3 Predator movies, Predator, Predator 2, and Predators. That's coming out on 4K disc as well, and I'm going to pick that up. I'm really curious to see if they finally managed to get Predator done properly, because I think the first time they released it, it was DNR to death, and the second, well, I think maybe it was either the first time they released it was DNR to death, and then re-released it without any DNR, and obviously everyone moaned about the amount of grain, or it was the other way around. I can't remember which, but yeah, it's had a problematic history on home video. So hopefully this time 20th Century Fox have finally got it right.
Yeah, I just think it's a difficult source. That's
it's a very grainy movie. That's the end of the story.
Yeah.
That's the way it was shot. The film stock they used, the conditions they shot under. It was quite a low budget film, actually, at the time. And it's just a grainy film, and just have to accept that fact.
Yeah, that's it. Right, so we're going to do TV shows of the month, because we kept this back because we knew that Mark and Ed at least watched some TV, so they would have some input on this one rather than just me and Steve last week. So I just want to mention 2 that are BBC 4 at the minute. BBC 4 are excellent for their documentary series, and especially on a Friday with the music. If you've any interest in music, they do some really nice stuff. The problem is there's a lot of repeats, but you do get original series coming along. And I just wanted to mention Smashed Hits, which was mid-year and came up, will be 3 episodes. Going through different cities in the UK during the 80s, when we had an explosion of all sorts of different styles of music, from new romantics through to hip hop and house, and it's really, really interesting. really interesting to get some of the stories behind where a lot of these things came from. I mean, the story of Soul to Soul and their sound system, fascinating. I found that really interesting, and how they made it big. So all the way through to Pete Waterman and PWL and all that kind of thing. So if you've any interest in music, I highly recommend that one. Did anybody else catch it?
This is embarrassing. I have actually only turned my television on once this week to watch one program, which I'll come to.
Okay. Anybody else catch this one? Smash Tits.
I was going to watch it, but I didn't get around to it, so it is worth checking out, is it?
Absolutely, yeah. If you've any interest in the different musical styles, and I go through everything that sort of broke into the scene, because the 80s was, in terms of the mixture in different styles of music that came through, really was a decade to pay attention to, so it is interesting. The other one for film fans is Mark Kermode's documentary series at the minute, where he goes through all different movie styles. I've seen the romantic comedy one. I've still to catch up with the rest, but on iPlayer, and you can't go wrong with a bit of Kermode. He knows his stuff when it comes to film. Yeah,
I've been meaning to check that out, but he said for some reason I thought it was a strange choice to start with the one about musicals. I don't know why.
Started with romantic comedies.
Romantic comedies was the first one. It's the only one I've
seen.
He's
done romantic comedies, heist films, and what was the most recent one?
The recent one was heist films. The first one was musicals.
No, first one was romantic comedies.
All right, it doesn't matter. It's on BBC.
Stop.
Doesn't matter.
No, we're going to fight.
No. All right. Okay.
Did he do musicals?
I don't know.
Imagine it.
I don't know, but I've seen the romantic comedy one, and it was really good, and I like the way he does things, and I recommend you go and watch it, because there will be one on musicals, and there'll also be one on heist movies, by the sounds of it.
And sci-fi and horror.
And sci-fi and horror, right. Okay, but if you get a chance, go and check them out. Right, Mark, what are you going to recommend?
Something that I don't know, I find it very charming, but Bob Mortimer and Paul Whitehouse going fishing.
Oh, it's been brilliant, hasn't it?
It's
been really good.
And it's been so... I didn't expect it to be quite as kind of honest and as them to be as kind of laid open as they are. You know, it's just very much old school television. I was discussing this with someone the other day, and they were saying you don't get shows like that made anymore, where you can just allow a long pause. Just these kind of two men, they're going fishing, they know each other well, and you don't have to cut out the middle of the conversation when there's a pause. You can just leave it all in there. And it's just, it almost feels like you're going fishing with them. It's a kind of lovely friendship, and it just very, very endearing, very charming.
Yeah. Again, I've only seen one, but yeah, it had me hooked. Excuse the pun. Yeah, really interesting. Unlike me when I edit this podcast, and I do edit out the really long pauses. What is that noise? It's getting really annoying.
Sorry. It's my. I've got.
Your love eggs again.
Yeah.
Swiping left and right. Right. Anything else, Mark?
No, I was just going to say also, if you're interested in stand-up comedy, Stuart Lee's content provider. You don't often get decent stand-up on terrestrial TV anymore. It's weird. It now feels like almost like, you know, it's kind of all shuffled away into Netflix and places like that, and so you're stuck with simply small sets from, like, you know, Live at the Apollo and stuff like that. So to get a proper themed show that goes through, it must be like best part of a couple of hours.
2 hours.
It really feels like, you know, it's like a proper kind of evening show. It's really good. Yeah,
he's got one of these styles where you either get it or you don't like it. But I've got to say, I find it very, very, very clever.
Sometimes that's the thing Chappie falls into, is his comedy is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. He will deconstruct jokes in a way that is quite exceptional, but it's not always necessarily that funny. It's sometimes too clever and not funny enough. But I do admire Stuart Lee, and when he is funny, he's really funny, but he's also incredibly clever in the way he structures comedy.
Yeah, but he's deconstructing comedy, and he's kind of deconstructing himself as well. And I love the fact that it uses the little kind of interludes, like in Comedy Vehicle, where they'd have Armando Iannucci asking him questions. In this one, they've got pretty sure it's Alan Moore, you know, the comic book writer. And at one point he asked him about comic creations. And he said, going back, if you were coming up with a comic character, if you were going to do it again, would you not have come up with a better persona? You know, so it's quite kind of brutal in that sense.
Yeah, sometimes really meta. Really, yeah, absolutely. Right, Ed, you switched your TV on for one program. What was it?
Inside the Factory. I love it. I'm sorry, I will make no bones about the fact I find it a genuinely edifying hour of television. It works on many levels. It's always quite impressive to see the incredible processes that go into making very humdrum things. But then on another level, it's really great fun watching the people in these factories doing their best not to punch Greg Wallace.
I was going to say, Greg Wallace.
Because he'll say something stupid, and you can see that they're just, there's just that momentary flash across their face. Like, if I feed him into this machine, there'll be some problems.
How much jail time will I get?
Yeah.
Greg Wallace sausages.
So, yeah, I really enjoy it. And I'm watching so little television. My B7 just sits there inert doing precisely well, I mean, when my son comes, we use it to watch episodes of Danger Mouse. And that's it.
The original Danger Mouse or the new Danger Mouse?
Both. I have to say, as a tangent thing, much as I'm periodically skeptical about remaking things, I do think New Danger Mouse stands comparison to the original.
Do they reuse as many shots as they did in the original?
No,
I realised that in the original they had about 30 seconds worth of shots and managed to stretch it out so far.
Yes, this is absolutely true. Made Hanna-Barbera look like Snow White. So yeah, it's a lot more. There's a lot more going on with the new ones. But no, I'm just watching so little television at the moment. Alexander Armstrong is Danger Mouse. Kevin Eldon does Penfold. One of our most underrated comic talents, Kevin Eldon. Yeah. Steve, I mean, I've always loved him from going back to Stuart Lee when it was Lee and Herring's Fist of Fun, and he was Simon Quinlank Hobby King. One of the greatest comedic creations of the last 30 years with his weak lemon drink. I absolutely loved that. Stephen Fry's in there. Bizarre. What's her chops? The woman who did Sarah Connor Chronicles and is Cersei Lannister.
You mean Lena Headey?
She crops up periodically, which I think is quite peculiar. Otherwise, that's it. That's all my television does these days. Danger Mouse and Inside the Factory.
Okay, so we'll wrap up with Steve.
I just love the way you went Sarah Connor Chronicles and Game of Thrones as Cersei Lannister, when I suspect no one saw the former and everyone knows who the latter is. You should have just gone with the Game of Thrones Cersei Lannister.
Look, you are a fine one to lecture me on thought processes as you tell us about films where you can't remember the title or the people in it. So, frankly, you can do one.
That's two of us doing one. Right. Let's wrap up on Steve. I've no doubt you've watched lots of TV.
Not a massive man. I watched. I did enjoy Commode's new series. I like that. That's quite good. And it took me a bit of time to get into it, but I'm really into Luke Cage now on Netflix, so I'm enjoying that. Also enjoying Preacher, which is on Amazon. Season 3 of Preacher, that's good fun. Otherwise, and I'm just finishing, and again, it's grown on me. It took some time, but it's grown on me. It's another Marvel series called Cloak and Dagger, which is also on Amazon. But otherwise, I've not been watching a lot of telly, I have to say.
I'll tell you what I've been finding recently. I'm watching a hell of a lot of YouTube.
Oh, yeah. I tell you what, I've really found, I blame some of my friends for this, but Techmoan, I've started watching a lot of his videos because they're really good fun. Also, there's a guy called Technology Connections who does something similar. Did a really good thing about why Laserdisc failed, which I quite enjoyed. Fat Man on Batman, they're worse than us, those two. They go on for 2 hours. So that's 2 hours a week taken away by watching that, although it's really funny.
To watch it.
I don't, but they are really funny. And Kevin Smith is just both of them actually, and Mark Menard, and they are so likable.
So I take it he's now fully recovered after his health.
Yes, and he's lost a shitload of weight. He's gone vegan. Of all things. I guess a heart attack will get you onto a diet if nothing else will. But both of those guys, they're because Mark Bernardin wrote for the Hollywood Reporter, among many other things, and is currently writing a show I'm looking forward to, which is the new Stephen King series Castle Rock, which is coming out, I think, on Amazon. And obviously Kevin Smith is, has been a director and writer for years. They both have quite a nice inside track on Hollywood, but they are both really funny and I highly recommend it if you like. It's a good 2 hours. It's a bit like this show. It's listening to two guys. They literally do it in a pub. They do it in the Scum and Villainy Cantina in Hollywood, which is basically like the cantina in Star Wars. And it's they're in a bar talking about movies for 2 hours. What more do you want?
All right. Well, they've changed the format then from when I used to watch it quite a bit, because it used to be in a studio with them just standing at a table.
It's all changed now. And even though it's still called Fat Men on Batman, there's nothing they just talk about movies. So it's just a show where two guys who know what they're talking about talk about movies, and they are both very funny, very witty, and they have great chemistry together. And it is a show that I highly recommend.
So you could just watch the audio. Well, you could just listen to the audio. Is what I meant. You don't have to watch it.
You can put it on. That's what I do. I just stick it on in the background while I'm doing something else, and just listen to them chatting away. Okay,
I'll go and check that one out. Thanks, Steve. I sent one over to you, Ed, recently. So if you like your car stuff and you like people messing around with cars and all the rest of it, I found this channel just by chance. Two young guys from Alabama. They're in their 20s. They're brothers. It's in their backyard, and basically they go to this scrapyard and they buy accident damaged cars, and then it's them rebuilding them and rebuilding the title on them, and getting them roadworthy again to sell on and make money or whatever. So the reason I started watching it is because one of the cars that they got was a Mustang GT, and they built that. You could have guessed that. And it starts out really amateurish, and you're thinking, what is this? And then before you know it, you are hooked, and you sit and you watch every episode. The episodes are about 20 to 25 minutes each. It's just them in their backyard with their kitten called Thomas and other animals running around and all the rest of it, and it's them working on a car, and they're basically they have some skills. Obviously, that I think that their dad looking at it was a mechanic and a long distance lorry driver and that kind of thing. So they've had a little bit of tuition into things, but it's them basically getting cars and learning all about them and learning how to fix them, and I find that really addictive watching. And they've now started on a Corvette Z06. That's what they're building now. They've built vans and stuff in the past, and trucks and that kind of thing. So if you like your wheeler dealers and that kind of thing, but you want it a little bit more in depth, a little bit more off the wall, basically, with the deep south accents, it's really entertaining. Did you manage to get a look at it, Ed?
I have looked very briefly, yes. Your friendly reminder that obviously data is a precious resource here, but yeah, I was. It was intriguing. The accents are good as well. You know, that's always going for a laugh. Yeah. But yeah, it's on the list of things to do as and when I get real internet back.
Okay, so if anybody's interested in that one, it's called Goon Squad on YouTube. So just search that. They must be doing well, because I looked at the first videos and had a couple of 100,000 views, and I've gone back and looked at the original episodes now, and this is only like 4 weeks and they're now over 1 million. So obviously there's a lot of people getting into it, and like I say, it's addictive stuff. So anybody else been watching YouTube? Anybody got recommendations for stuff?
Well, I read Red Letter Media. I would enjoy them.
Yeah.
They do some funny stuff, and
they do.
Although they always annoy me though, because at the beginning of the video they muck about and do really bad comedy skits which don't work, and I know that's meant to be part of the joke, but I skip that bit and go straight to when they're talking about the film.
Yeah, the only thing that annoys me as well is they do they will do a whole episode on a film that's coming out, and they'll do it as their preview, and it's got nothing to do with the film whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't watch those.
And they're just messing around, so I tend to
when they do the half in the bag where they review a film that's recently come out, that's usually quite good, because I tend to agree with them and they're quite funny. And also their review is quite good when they pick a crappy film from years ago and they go over it again. That could be quite good fun too. So there's some good stuff there, but there is some stuff I usually skip. And Screen Junkies is always still good for fun. The honest trailers and that sort of stuff remains enjoyable.
Can I just make a brief apology? Mark Kermode didn't do anything on musicals.
No, he's done romantic comedies, heist movies, and coming-of-age movies so far.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Sci-fi.
Hey, at least you're honest and you put your hands up to making a mistake,
yeah,
Mark.
Fair play.
Fair play.
Plus, you
well, just in case you left it in the edit.
Yeah. I would be leaving it in the edit, don't you worry. And you... Right, okay. To wrap up, let's finish with some Star Wars news. Episode 9 cast has been announced. Mark Hamill's in there, so obviously Luke Skywalker's coming back. JJ's found a way of bringing him back. Probably as a Force Ghost.
As a Force Ghost, obviously.
Yeah, probably. More than likely. Although he could wake up in the shower. A whole Bobby Ewing scene.
That would be great.
Has anyone ever had a shower in the
Wake up in a Bacta tank.
What, and The Last Jedi never happened?
Yeah, that would be great.
That is probably the best way around it, I think. Just have Luke Skywalker open his eyes in a Bacta tank, and we're back at Empire. And we can start all over again. Yeah,
no Ewoks. That never happened.
Yep, we can fix all of this. Yeah, it'd be a bit like in Deadpool 2 with the time machine at the end. Big time, kid. Yeah, so they announced the cast, which starts filming on Monday, I think. So the day this podcast goes up, filming starts at Pinewood.
No, it started the other day, actually.
I thought it was.
No, the Star Wars show did a whole thing when they started.
Oh yeah, you're right. They have started filming.
Yeah.
So it must have been the 1st of August. I think it was the 1st of August, and that's when they started. Yeah, which was when was that? Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they started on Wednesday, last Wednesday. Yes, but so they announced the cast, and obviously there's who you'd expect: Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Adam Driver, Donald Gleeson, Chewbacca, Anthony Daniels. Everyone who was still around at the end of The Last Jedi. They've announced Mark Hamill, so clearly he's coming back as a Force ghost. They've announced Billy D. Williams, and they're going to use footage of Carrie Fisher from The Force Awakens for this. And I just thought, Christ, that just sounds like utter desperation on the part of Lucasfilm. It's like, we don't know what to do. The fans hate everything we make. Oh, we'll do some more Clone Wars. Everyone like that. Oh, we better get back. We better get Mark back. We better get Billy D. Come on in, and find somewhere to get Carrie back, because
how old is Billy D. Williams now?
80, I think, and quite portly from what I understand.
I hope they're not writing him into, ones after this. Otherwise, they could end up with another Carrie Fisher situation.
Well, I couldn't care less, to be perfectly honest, about this film. I'm only going to go and see it out of academic curiosity as to how JJ, the mess he got left in at the end of.
Yeah. How did he get out of that car crash? Basically,
it consists 8 people on the Millennium Falcon, one of whom's dead in real life. So get out of that one, JJ. Yes, I have no idea where he's going to go with this, or how he's going to deal with what Rian Johnson did to the story. So I'm just going out of academic curiosity. I couldn't really care anymore. The cast is, I look at it and think, I think there's a couple of new members of the cast as well joining. Richard E. Grant is joining, which is an interesting choice.
I'm assuming they'll have to go down the same kind of route as with the, like Ollie Reed with Gladiator, that kind of thing, with using some kind of a poignant line which she had beforehand, and then just having a kind of either pass away or something, along those lines, because there can't be anything really that pertinent from The Force Awakens, can there? Which they can kind of stitch in.
I thought so. It was footage they didn't use, and why didn't they use it in the first place? It was any good. I don't know. It just smacks of sheer desperation, doesn't it? And it's not their fault. Obviously, it's very sad that Carrie Fisher died in real life. I mean, that's just a sad event. But I don't know. Like I say, does anyone really care? Does anyone really care, guys?
No, not really. I'm kind of.
This weekend, I should be getting my disc of season 4 of Rebels. That I'm looking forward to. But episode 9, couldn't get monkeys.
Yeah, I've got some projectors in at the minute, so I will be catching up with a lot of things that I haven't caught up with, because some stuff I want to see. Yeah, okay, it's a £10 on Amazon. I'll go and get Ant-Man. Yeah, okay, I'll do that. But yeah, I'm going to try and catch up with. It's certainly Rebels. I've got 2 and 3 to watch there. They've been sitting for a while, so I'm going to get on and get them done and catch up with that. That's what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in episode 9. I'll go and see it, but just for the same reasons you're going to go and see it, Steve. Just how does he get out of this mess? That's the interesting part for me.
I mean, if JJ thought the pressure was on when he made The Force Awakens, it's even worse now.
Yeah.
It's like you've got to save everything with this one, JJ, because now it really is in trouble. And I think it must be quite relieved that they've got a year and a half to let things calm down a bit and the dust settle before this comes out. But as it stands at the moment, I don't think anyone's particularly bothered. Yeah, I've stopped watching the Star Wars show because it's just they're just a bunch of shills flogging Disney crap now, and I just don't care.
Well, that's a happy note too.
Yeah,
on that happy note.
Yeah. It's like that moment in space, isn't it? You've finally seen what's going on. Yeah. Burning all your old Star Wars stuff.
My favourite line in space is "You Lando."
Yeah.
And on that, that's it for this week. My thanks to Steve Withers.
I quit this job.
Ed Selley.
Take me back to the ghetto.
And Mark Botwright.
Brenda.
Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Bookmark AVForums for latest reviews, news and videos. And of course, why not leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, but only if you enjoyed the show. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.